Hi there, I'm Katie from literacylearn.com. Thank you for joining me for PD and Pieces. Today we're talking about something really exciting. It is morphology. So we're going to learn just a quick introduction as to what it is. If you've been wondering, you're in the right spot. Let's get to it. So first you need to know, what is morphology? Morphology is the study of word parts, and these word parts carry meaning. We call the smallest units of meaning morphemes, and it helps us to understand the meaning in a word. Students understand how words are built by studying morphology, and then also what they mean. So when we teach our students about morphology, when we teach them that words can be broken down, not just into graphemes or syllables, but they can actually be broken down into morphemes, these smallest units of meaning, it's a really valuable tool for their reading toolbox. If you understand the structure of words as well as common morphemes, this is going to ultimately lead to deeper meaning, a deeper vocabulary, and a greater understanding. So let's look at a few examples. When I talk about morphemes, there are actually two types of morphemes that we have that comprise words. We have free morphemes, which these are words that can stand alone, word parts that can stand alone, such as run or book or port. And then we have something called bound morphemes. And these are meaningful units of language. They carry meaning, but they need to be attached to something else. So for example, the suffix ing, which means continuing action, right? It's not a word on its own. It can't stand on its own. So it needs to be bound to something. It needs to be bound to a base. Or for example, the prefix pre, it needs to be bound for something. It can't be standing there on its own. So we call that a bound morpheme. So let's look at an example. If we have the word redoing, okay, we're going to have three morphemes in this word. We have the prefix re, we have the base word do, and then we have our suffix ing. Each morpheme, each word part, contributes to the overall meaning of the word. Re means again, do means to do it, and then ing means it's a continuing action, right? So if you are redoing something, you're doing something again right now, doing it now. So you can see how how words are built based upon the morphemes that are used within a single word. You might be asking, why does this matter? Why do I need to include this within my structured literacy classroom? Well, you need to for a couple reasons. First, it supports decoding multi-syllabic words, right? So if we have the word construction, we can break it down into morphemes. We have con, struct, and then we have our suffix ion. And we can break it apart to read it that way. It also improves spelling. So if you think about it, I know the word construction, I hear a sh. So do I spell it with an sh? Because I hear a sh. When you understand morphology, you know why we hear that sh sound, and we know how to spell it, right? Our base would be struct, and then our suffix would be ion, and we know that when we have that last letter in a base that ends with a T or an S, and then we have our suffix that starts with an I, oftentimes that TI or SI becomes a sh sound. So being able to break it apart into its morphemes is going to help enable us to improve our spelling, improve our students' spelling. And then it also builds vocabulary and leads to greater comprehension. So you can break words apart according to their morphemes, and then you can analyze the meaning of the morphemes. So for example, in the word construction, the prefix con means together. Struct is a Latin base that means to build. And then our suffix ion is the act of. So our literal definition, the act of building together. Now, one thing to note is that morphology is really helpful for kids with reading struggles, particularly those with dyslexia. And that is because we know dyslexic kids have deficits in the phonological processing area of their brain. And so giving them this extra tool in their toolbox in order to understand words, to be able to read words and spell words, it's super powerful for them. So I would encourage all of you guys to be implementing morphology into your lesson. I'm going to talk about classroom connections on the next slide. And so here we're talking about classroom connections. And you might be saying, well, here's just one more thing that I need to include in my classroom. This doesn't have to be hard. Even young students can learn morphemes, right? Common morphemes like un and re and suffix ed and suffix ing. You can see here in this little poster here, you can see the word dog, and then how when we add the simple morpheme suffix s, it becomes dogs and the meaning of the word changes, right? So this doesn't have to be super complex, but we can start showing kids using word sums or word chains. These are great tools in order to show them how words are built. So I would encourage you all to teach common suffixes, prefixes, and bases, including Greek and Latin bases, right? You also want to use lots of word building activities such as word sums or word matrices, word ladders, as I mentioned before. And you always want to connect morphology to vocabulary so that kids can really deeply understand words and then see the connections between words that share similar morphemes. So, just some final thoughts. Morphology really empowers students to be able to read, to write, and understand and comprehend more deeply. It's not for advanced readers. Morphology benefits all learners, and as I mentioned before, particularly those who struggle with reading. And it gives us and gives our students tools for lifelong literacy. Even I am intrigued by this and wanting to dig deeper into why words are spelled the way that they are or why words are pronounced the way that they are. And I'm learning something new almost each and every day about morphology. So, as always, thank you for joining me as you grow in your literacy understanding. And I hope to see you all again soon.